Okay.
We've started. All right, here we go. Let's go live.
I go live. And you can ask me that question.
All right. Ready when you guys are ready? You guys good?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Welcome to Inside the 18, live from my bunker in Palm Desert, California. I'm Michael Madge, and with me is 99 World Cup winner Saskia Weber. And joining us are two people that literally need no introduction in the goalkeeping community here in the United States. We've got two legends on with us. This is pretty incredible for us. We've got Paul Blodgett and Tim Mulqueen. Mulch, Blodge, as people know them in the goalkeeping community. Guys, this is an honor for me, honestly. For those young kids out there who may not be familiar with you guys, this is a really special treat. We're talking about people who've trailblazed the path for goalkeepers throughout this entire country. Guys, honestly, thank you so much for taking the time to be on today.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. I mean, listening to the podcast and being on with Blodge, who I call the godfather of goalkeeping coaches.
Absolutely.
And Saskia, who I've known forever and so proud of what she's done. It's a pleasure to be on.
Go ahead, Blodge. Hey, this is your guys' show. I'm not, honestly, there's too much Jersey in this show right now. I'm not even going to try to step in.
Well, I was going to say the two biggest honors I received in my coaching career was getting inducted to the Rutgers Athletic Hall of Fame and being introduced to Tim Howard's camp by Mulch as the godfather of goalkeeping. That was to have him say that in front of the camp made me feel really, really good. So it was pretty cool. Thanks, Mulch.
It's the truth. I mean, right now I feel like, I
don't know if that's a good or not.
Yeah, I know. I don't know
I'm
either.
like going through oh my gosh, I'm a bit overwhelmed. I mean, if everybody out there doesn't know, these are my mentors and my coaches, and I wouldn't have been anywhere without both of you. And it's so amazing to see you both and be on.
You know what's really cool is like I'm not from Jersey originally. I'm a Jersey's adopted son, but haven't been able to get out of it yet. But Mulch kind of alluded to it before the show came on, how being in the right place at the right time. With Bob starting up the program at Rutgers and bringing me down with him because I met him in grad school, and then Mulch coming on board, and then Saskia being there, and then all the traditions of the great programs and the great goalkeepers and players that came through that program was very, very special for me personally, and I know for us in general, to be a part of that whole thing, because it really set the stage for kind of what we're all doing today anyway. So it was pretty neat.
Absolutely. I mean, I had never, I hadn't had real serious goalkeeper training and stuff like that. And then I got thrown into this family. And as you've learned, Michael, it's the Jersey just family of goalkeeping and, our philosophies and success with all the goalkeepers we've had. I see Hannah. Hey, Hannah Mitchell. What's up? UCLA keeper, Jersey girl.
There you go.
Is saying hi right now, one of Blodge's proteges. And I just, it's really humbling to see both of you. I have some digs, like I said, Tim.
I'm sure they're coming. I'm sure.
Where's the mullet? Where's the hair?
Yeah. It's all gone. It's all gone. Coaching will do it to you, Saskia. You'll see.
Yeah. Oh,
that
no,
hair will start thinning. That hair will start thinning.
Every time I take glucosamine with chondroitin, I think of Blodge.
That is so true.
Oh boy.
I feel like I'm actually I just walked into somebody's family reunion. I'm just like there.
That's a Jersey thing. It's funny. Saskia basically ruined it for me because she was in a good way. So she was the first female goalkeeper I ever worked with. So where do you go from there? Everything else was downhill. So
it was just focused on the men.
It's just so great, Sas, for all that you've accomplished, and you're a legend yourself.
Thank you.
We're a legend by age. You're a legend by ability. So congratulations on everything.
I tell this story all the time. I don't remember where we were in Jersey coming out to train with you to get extra training in, and Timmy Howard being there, and I'm like little Timmy Howard because he was little.
He probably was at that time.
Yeah, and he was
probably 15,
and he was a little spark plug. He was all over the place.
Yeah,
was
I mean
awesome.
Jersey. I mean between you, Tony Mayola, Tim Howard. I mean John Conway. The list goes on with goalkeepers from New Jersey who've gone on and done great things. And you know, we're again. I said it before the show. You know, to be a good coach, you have to have good players. And you know, Blodgett and I have been blessed to be around some real good ones.
Yeah, but you know, I said that, you know, because Michael always asks me like, what is it? And I think that we all have this philosophy. We've all, like I just told you guys, like before we were on the air, like I use the drills you guys taught me still. And the ones that, you know, work.
Yeah.
Whoa, no, I mean,
hold on.
Having to modify.
Hold on. I love that. That is so prototypical Saskia Weber right there. Just so opinionated.
Silent assassin.
I love the way that was coming in there too. Because let's be honest, we've all gotten drills from other coaches before, and we'll be like, "This is awesome," and then 10 years later, you're like, why was I doing this whole thing?
Trust me, I know. I look back at some of the sessions I ran back in those days, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, what was I thinking? But you know, like everything else, you grow and you learn, and you're influenced by you know, the people you got to work with. I like to think that Blodgett and I weren't too far off base.
No, you guys were right on point. All I meant by that was like, I've had to, we talked about this the other day, actually.
I mean, the game evolves.
Sure, 100%.
So you have to evolve with it.
That's right.
Whether it's like adding more movement in and footwork in and everything. But man, some of those drills, I have a couple of my favorites.
I know. When I started up, I would never played much. You know, I was like you guys. You guys played when you were kids and all. I never started until I was about 25. But I just wanted to get drills and drills and drills so I could figure out, at least I could go in with something to do. And then it came down to when I had Dave Yeager and Joe DeMorat. Joe was a freshman. And Dave Yeager was like a blue collar goalkeeper. He wanted to just bust his chops all the time. Just tell him to go through a wall and he would do it. Joe DeMorat couldn't take that type of training, and I didn't know that at first. So I was training Joe like I was training Dave. And Joe actually came in as a freshman in the office with Bob and myself and started crying, saying, I can't be trained this way. And so all Joe DeMorat wanted to do was like, you know, a couple hundred sit-ups and 500 push-ups. And then we had a jugs machine then. And all he wanted me to do was get the 18 with a jugs machine. God. Crank it up to 100 miles an hour until he caught 20 balls in a row. And then he said, I'm ready. That's all he ever did. Matter of fact,
the jugs machine is why I wasn't allowed to use it anymore at Soccer Plus, because I cranked it up to 100 miles an hour and hurt it.
100 miles an hour?
Yeah.
I have bad memories of that. I was a guinea pig at Joe Matchnick's camp when that thing first came out. It was like the original jugs machine. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
And it was
the
like
one
a
that left
curveball.
the marks on the ball.
Yeah. You had no idea where that thing was going. And he would crank it up, and he was always big on, okay, you're a college goalkeeper, get in there. And he'd whip us in there. He cranked that thing up. I swear to God, like the tops of my fingers were like broken off. Because it was like it was like a curveball. Like it would rip the ball in half, for God's sake.
Yeah, because if you didn't, you had to do both sides of it.
Yeah,
you had to do both sides of it. So if they weren't even speed, the ball would think, but it never worked anyway.
No, it would just hurt me. Like, and no matter where it hit me, it would hurt. Like if they wanted, like if I had the codes to like the nuclear weapons and they whipped out a jug machine, I'd give it up. I give up the code. Like that thing scared me.
So yeah, I never ever used it on me. I just used it on people. So.
By the way, this show is going to be like a 3-parter. This is going to be like 3 episodes of the podcast. No, I love it. I absolutely love this. Are you kidding me? This is incredible. And honestly, this is for the young goalkeeper coaches, you know, listening right now to the show or watching the stream right now. This is what it's all about. You know, we talked about it with Lori Pels on Monday, that just the goalkeeper union, just the goalkeeper community, you can not see somebody for 10, 15, 20 years, and then you won't skip a beat. That's how tight-knit the community is. Just all the connections we all make together and how we all grow together. This is really what it's all about. And just sharing knowledge from each other. Speaking of that, I actually want to go to one of these questions from one of the fans right now, from one of the insiders. And they go to both you guys, and Saskia, I guess you can participate if you'd like as well too. since this is all about the history of American goalkeeping, they go, do you guys have any recommendations right now during this this lull time period of games for keepers to watch for specific areas of growth? Any specific classic games that maybe a lot of young goalkeepers might not be familiar with that could benefit them in the future? I'm going to start with a one that a lot of younger goalkeepers might not be familiar with, but some of our preteens and adolescents already are familiar with, and that's the 2014 performance by Tim Howard against Belgium.
Yeah, it's funny. I had seen that game play out like when he was 15. So and I'll just comment on that game before I give you my game. Tim's game against Belgium reminded me a lot of his youth teams. So the team was pretty good, right? In 2014, we had some good players, but we were clearly undermanned. As his youth team, we had a bunch of guys who thought they were really good, and they were bang average, but Tim would save everything and we'd win. So like watching that game reminded me of like he was 15. Okay, he's going to make 1,000 saves and we're going to win. So yeah, that's a great game to see as far as your ability to play under pressure and your ability to make saves, keep your team in the game, and a variety of different saves. So that's a great game to watch. My game that I would pick would be either in 2007 or 2008 at Giant Stadium when Tim played against Argentina. The game was 0-0. But if you notice, he cut out Argentina at that time, obviously with the great Messi and Sergio Aguero and all those players. They played a lot of through balls. And in the modern era where everybody plays either a back three or back four, those little tight diagonal balls are areas that the goalkeeper has to deal with. Tim was very aggressive with his starting spot. Yeah. He came out, claimed all those through balls so that the second half, Argentina decided they had to attack down the flank. And it totally changed the game away from what Argentina wanted to do. And the U.S. ended up getting a result 0-0. So that would be my pick.
And, that's what we tell, you tell our young keepers and everything now. I'm like a little nervous making comments.
Stop,
right now.
It's us.
I'm just kidding. Is that if you establish that dominance in the box with those through balls and flighted balls and everything, that eventually what's going to happen is you're going to force the other team to change their thought process and what they're doing. And because he dominated those through balls and everything, Argentina had to change. And they had to go down the flanks. And like a lot of young goalkeepers don't realize that you have that strength and that ability to influence what the other team is doing by, covering your area, owning your box and everything. And so that's a perfect example of it.
Yeah. And Saskia, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think what young goalkeepers have to understand and what they get frightened by is the distance they have to cover.
Right.
Either coming up, because every time like we're tied to that goal line, right? We all are. But if you start at a good spot, you don't have to travel as far as you really think.
Right.
So if for me, that game's important for Tim because his starting spot was aggressive, where he would claim those through balls, and it wasn't like he was traveling a great distance to do it. He had to read it, of course, and be explosive, but it wasn't like he was going 16 yards to get it. It was maybe now because of his starting spot, 7, 6 in around there. So you're spot on, Sask, about your ability to dominate the box, and it's where you start that helps you do that.
Yeah, and you said it yourself. It's also reading it. Like,
that's right.
We all know if you're paying attention, you're reading a game, and you're a half a second ahead. You can read what's about to happen. Then you're going to get that jump. And so it's not going to be like this last second, like, oh my God, I got to come, because then you're already behind. So if you can read the game properly, then you can eat all of that up.
And, Sask, you've had games like this. And Mike, that goes to your game about Belgium. And talking to Tim extensively about that game, he said the game slowed down for him that night. Like the game was slow. Like everything was about to happen. He kind of saw it in advance in a slower motion. And he actually said it's the closest he's ever been to being in, like, quote unquote, the zone. And Sask, I know you had many performances like that as well. So
people don't believe me when I say that.
No, Sask, look, you were big time. You were big time. There's no doubt about it.
They look at me like I'm crazy. There are times that like saves even slowed down for me.
Yeah.
Like a save that I made that people thought were like, oh my God. I was like, oh God, that thing was just hanging by a string. It didn't move. I was so focused Like I could have walked over and picked it up.
Man,
Yeah,
it must be nice to be that good to that, like the game slows
Yeah, I never
down.
had that.
I've never had that experience before.
Never had that. It got faster for me,
Blodge,
man.
you ever have that?
Blodge.
Do you ever
Yeah.
have that experience?
He's the Zen
It got
master.
faster for me, man.
It's the Zen master.
Actually, I
Blodge
had-
taught me.
I got hit a lot when I played basketball, because that was my game for a good part of my life before I just got into soccer, obviously. But I would get in the zones a lot in basketball, and where I don't really remember much of what I actually did, although I was doing it very well. You know, it was kind of weird. But getting about the game stuff, I think, you know, you guys pointing out stuff in the games is great. And one of the things I think is a problem is that a lot of kids don't watch the game enough to learn it. You know, it amazes me, like, even at the college in Jersey, the women's team, you know, the women's team was playing at night, and I asked the team, how many going to watch the game tonight? They didn't even know the game was on that night, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that kids need to watch games, and especially with, like, when goals are scored now, they got 8 different cameras showing how different, you know, how the goal was scored. You can see it from all angles. You can see if it were a goalkeeper mistake. You can see if it was a defensive mistake. And that's a great way to learn it. I mean, if the kids have just watched on TV the Premier League goals of the week or whatever, then you can learn a lot just from that, you know. So the game I always think about is with Tim threw the ball down half, but you know, was it against England in the World Cup when Tim threw that ball down the sideline, it resulted in the goal.
Algeria, the Algeria game, where they ended up advancing out of the group from that game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was tremendous, you know, and the kids can see what such a weapon it was. And when I watched him play. I forget where it was. It was down at Philadelphia Union Stadium, and I love watching him warm up, and I like to get the games and watching keepers warm up and see how they prepare. But he would like put a person out on the sideline, and that where the midfield line comes to the sideline, he'd have a guy out there, and he would just take a ball, put it down, and hit it. So during the game, that's where somebody was. He knew the person was there, and he like a pea hit the thing at him every time. So he was just able to just watch them play, in any goalkeeper high level play, and just watch them warm up, watch them move, watch how they communicate, and you can pick up an awful lot from those kinds of things, you know.
Mike, allow me to go back, and Sask, you'll appreciate this one, I think, a lot too. The other game that I would have kids watch, now I'm really dating myself, is the 2000 MLS Cup. Mm-hmm. Tony Meola played the single greatest game in MLS goalkeeping history that day, by far. You look at the team that Chicago had, they brought Josh Wolf and DeMarcus Beasley off the bench.
That was Bob's powerhouse Chicago Fire team, right?
We scored in Kansas City in the 12th minute, and we hung on for dear life. And Tone made save after save after save. And Sask, you know Tony as well as I do. When the bright lights are on and that man's center stage, he's going to put on a show. And
absolutely,
he was unbelievable that night. I mean, unbelievable. Like, he had a great career. No, there's no doubt about it. He's a legend in goalkeeping, a legend in New Jersey, of course. But like that game, kids don't recognize. Like, we were a decisive underdog against that team, and he single-handedly won the game for us. He's yet the only goalkeeper to be league MVP and to be goalkeeper of the year and MLS Cup MVP in the same year.
Yeah,
wow.
Tony
was brilliant.
Was a beast. I mean,
yeah, he's the original. He's the original OG.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and he's such a Jersey boy.
Damn right.
Oh, my.
Damn right. Damn
Carney, right?
Yeah.
Well, I ran into him ran into him last year at All-Star in Orlando, and I literally just thought this was a professional bodybuilder that was just coming right at me. Right now. I was like,
he would like to hear that. He would like to hear that.
His shoulders are huge.
His
shoulders are huge.
My first introduction, I was like Coach Tony for 8 years, and it was tremendous for me. But what Blodgett and I remember first, and Sask, you were there at the time too, around there. Like, Tony went from qualifying for the World Cup in September to winning the national championship in November.
Yeah.
Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
Like, that's where we were as a soccer nation, a footballing nation at that time, where a college sophomore, I think he was only a sophomore at the time, won the national championship. 2 months prior, he was qualifying for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. Like,
but he's like the epitome of blue collar. as well.
Oh my God,
I
yeah.
mean, I know he loves the spotlight. Hi, Tony, if you're watching, I love you. But he absolutely was like a Jersey blue collar.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God. I
Without a
mean,
doubt.
he's the Sopranos. He's New Jersey. I mean, that's my man Tones.
I think he'll like to hear that too.
Yeah, that's my man Tones. But it's great. Like, so U.S. Soccer honored Tim before the U.S.-Mexico game. And I had a moment where it was me, Tim, and Tony standing around talking.
Nice.
And like, it was unbelievable for me. Like, you know, here they are, like two of the greatest of all time. And Jersey guys on top of it. We were swapping stories, the three of us together. And it was great. It was really great. But he's the original.
Absolutely.
So I watched that 2000 game as well.
I want to get back real quickly to what you guys were talking about, starting position, because I think this is really important for younger goalkeepers to hear. How you were describing people such as Tim Howard, Tony Miola, very, very athletic goalkeepers, yet they still made things simpler for themselves by putting themselves in a position that was advantageous, so they didn't have to take that extra step. But basically, they're in already a position where in that they take that step and they're going to make it a simple situation. Allison Becker, I consider one of those goalkeepers, a preventative goalkeeper in that regard. And I think one thing that I was told, you know, recently that made a lot of sense to me is when I was talking to an MLS goalkeeper coach, and he said, you know, one of the number one issues that I have when I first get a goalkeeper who comes into the MLS system from, let's say, college or the lower levels is their starting position. Because at the lower levels, they'd been able to get away with being a couple yards off or a little bit deeper or a little bit higher. And they were good enough athletes that they could make up for it. But once they got to the MLS level, the speed of play was such that they couldn't get away with that. So let's really stress how important is that starting position for young goalkeepers to learn at an early age?
Well, I always say you have to be proactive, not reactive. Okay. So to dumb it down that simple for younger keepers, like, and it goes back to reading the game, understanding what's going on, getting your positioning proper, but be a half a second ahead. Yeah. You know, don't guess, don't assume a cross is going to, like a slotted ball is going to come and then they tuck it in your post, but be reading the game, the situation around you. Be proactive in that, and not a lot of athletes that are goalkeepers that rely on that when they're younger are like, well, I'm going to be reactive, but because I'm such a good athlete, I can make up for it. And eventually that'll catch up to you.
That's one thing. When we worked down at Tim Mulqueen's and Tim Howard's camp, I really like listening to Tim talk to the goalkeepers, because he would get the higher level, like the college kids and the better high school kids, and you bring them in. He would tell them things he wouldn't tell some of the other kids because they probably wouldn't understand it. But he would explain to them how a Chelsea player was coming at him when he turned a certain way or did a certain thing. He knew what they were going to do with the ball, and that just comes from studying your opponents, playing the game. Like a lot of these kids today, you know, a lot of kids come to me, they say, I want to join a certain club team. I said, well, you're going to be able to play, or you're going to be sitting the bench the whole time. And they say, well, I might not play. I said, you got to play games. You have to get in there and make mistakes, because you learn by making mistakes. This is one position where you have to make mistakes to get better. Yeah. And as long as you're doing that when you're younger, and as you get older, your mistakes become less, but it becomes to a different degree, like Mike was just saying, because now the ball's coming at you, you know, twice the speed and everything's much faster. But you got to have you got to play, you got to have the experience. And what I try to tell kids, because at that big goal behind them, you know, when these kids get first time jump into the big goal, you know, whether they're 12 or whatever they are, they turn around and it's like ridiculous the size of this thing. I train them to master a 2-yard goal, and then master a 3-yard goal, and then master a 4-yard goal. You really don't have to master much more than 4, maybe 5 yards in the goal, because you think about it, you're standing in the center of the goal and you can master 2 yards to your left and 2 yards to your right. You got half the goal covered, and if the ball does go to the corner, then that's just courage. You know, you just go. And once they learn how to all the footwork and moving positioning of in a smaller goal, they get a little more confident, and then they can start realizing they don't have to really cover that whole big thing behind them. As long as they can cover certain parts of it by the angles and so on, like you're saying, anticipate.
Nice.
So for me, I think, you know, Saska, I'm going to steal that line from you in my coaching from now on, because I agree. I think if you're reactive, you're too late. I like that, Saska. You taught me something. See, now the roles are reversed. I like it.
I was going to make a T-shirt that said it.
Well, Well, you should. I'll buy it. I'll buy it. I'll buy it. I mean, yeah, you need to be proactive. I think, Mike, to your point and Saskia's point in Blodgett, like your starting spot is everything in goalkeeping. It's everything. Be it angle play, be it coming off your line to claim a cross or a through ball. It doesn't matter. It's all where you start. And that's where training, you have to experiment with different starting spots in your training till you find that comfort zone. And again, it's based on athletic ability. It's based on quickness. It's based on power.
Size.
It's based, yeah, exactly right. Size. It's also based on experience. So I guarantee you, if you watch Tony, Tim, Casey, Sask, as they got older in their career, I guarantee you their starting spot changed. I guarantee it.
As I got older in my career, it got easier.
That's right.
Yeah.
So your starting spot became almost natural to you.
Absolutely.
But maybe it wasn't as aggressive as it was when you were younger because you didn't need it to be, because you were seeing things at such a level that you could be at a comfortable starting spot and make all the plays you wanted without putting your body through the risk that you do when you're a younger goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So for me, starting spots are everything. They're always evolving by how you read the game and how you evolve in the goal.
Yeah, and for younger goalkeeper coaches and stuff like that, which is what we like to talk about, is everybody's different.
Of course.
So you can't go by where you think the person should start. I mean, you can, but through your ability. Like, you have to assess your goalkeepers. You have to see what their limitations are and what they're really strong at. And everybody's starting spot, everybody's positioning on certain situations is going to be different.
Sas, that's a great point. Like, you have to know the student that you're teaching. And again, I consider us teachers who get to wear soccer clothing. I mean, that's what we are. We're teachers,
Definitely.
right?
Definitely.
And you have to know your subject. So like, I've been blessed to have a wide range of, from youth national team goalkeepers to senior goalkeepers to college goalkeepers. Like, everyone is different. And you have to treat them as such.
But even with my three UCLA keepers,
they're all different.
I love saying that, but they're all different.
By the way, as a Rutgers person, that kind of hurts me a little bit.
But Rutgers for life.
I hear you, Rose.
Guys, Rutgers for life. You know that.
Wait, hold on. We got to get Casey.
Proud.
We got to get Casey Murphy on soon too. Speaking of
I'm
Rutgers,
there we go.
Yeah, to be a part of the UCLA family. And guess what? When I played, UCLA didn't even have a team. So.
Yeah, well, they had one when me and Blodgett
Yes,
coached.
they did.
They got a ring on their finger. Thanks.
I remember the game.
Bastards is really.
Oh my God, I forgot. For me to say that.
Yeah, it's okay,
Saskia, don't you have to?
That's
Don't
your
you have to go
second
do
shot
something?
today.
Yeah,
That's your second shot.
Saskia, don't you have to go do something right now?
I want to get back to what you were saying about understanding your goalkeeper that you're training, because I think that's a big issue with a lot of young goalkeeper coaches out there. And I'll put myself in that same category when I first started out, is that I was training all my kids the same, not understanding different physical attributes, not understanding different mental attributes. So I really want to stress that in regards to not just the starting position, but also from a technical standpoint. Actually, this goes to one of the questions from Omar Zini from Pro GK Academy, who unfortunately is in the car right now watching this as opposed to on the show with us because he can't get out of a commitment. But he wants to ask this of you guys here. And he goes, when you're coaching at the professional level, are you ever critiquing a choice of technique? Or are you only trying to create sessions that force them into decisions which would force a certain technique within that decision? He's curious because when he's been working either at the MLS Academy level or the collegiate level, whenever he's tried to correct a technique of, let's say, a 19, 20-year-old, 21-year-old, it has not been met with, let's just say, the best of, I can't even think of the word. You know what I'm getting at. They weren't fans of it.
I understand. I understand. For me, I'll speak first to my experiences. I think shame on those goalkeepers for not trying to not accepting, coaching and getting better. I've been blessed to work with some big goalkeepers, and they all want to get better. That's the one thing that Saskia, to Tony, to Tim, to Zach Thornton, you name it. They all want to get better. So it has nothing to do, like, if you can give them the why, they're all in. They're all in. So if I can explain to Tim or to Tony or Saskia when we worked with her that, okay, this is the why we're doing this and this is good, it's going to help you, they're all in. The great ones are always about that. The top pros are always about, you can, to Omar's question, you can definitely change technique. You can work with technique. Has to make sense though. It has to make sense.
I agree totally. And the optimal word there, Mulch, is why. You know, I think too many coaches out there, especially at the younger levels, just tell the kids to do things. That's kind of the old mentality. You just do it. And a lot of these kids don't get it. And they don't understand why they're doing it. I think the reasons why we have been successful as teachers of the position, which I agree with totally, we are teachers of the position, is because we make them understand why they're doing things in certain situations. And once they understand that, they're more than willing to do it. They want to do it, you know, because it doesn't make sense to them now. So that's a perfect word.
Yeah, and I always make sure, absolutely the why. I always make sure that it's on both sides. It's like, this is why you're not being successful here. And and you know how technical I am, Mike, and stuff. And so, like, whether it's like you're not getting enough power, you know, on this step or something, this is why. Whether you know, it could be something like double setting, which I see like a lot of goalkeepers do because they set too early, then they set again.
Right.
And now you're too wide, and now, of course, you can't make that dive or that save. You have no explosion. But and then telling them that side of it, and then showing them the proper way and why this will be, you know, why this will work better for you. Like, you can't just say, let's do this drill, it'll change it. They have to know in their head, especially as they get older, they have to know in their head what's making the difference.
And the other thing too, and again, shame on those kids for not,
Absolutely.
I mean, for not buying in, because, you know, the every goalkeeper that I've dealt with professionally has always wanted just to get better. Like, they could care less if they were right or they just want to get better. So if it helps them get better, they're in. Has to make sense though. Like, it can't be something off the wall where, you know, they're jumping over, you know, rings of fire and making a save.
Tim, which Instagram channel were you looking at recently?
Well, trust me.
I'm sure that's going to come.
I'm sure we'll get to that. But again, like, technique makes the difficult save at the highest levels.
But I think, Tim, and I think, Paul, like, you guys know, I think some of our hardest goalkeepers to train that and to teach are ridiculously athletic goalkeepers.
Of course.
Because in their head, they've been praised for making, you know, that stupid, like, amazing upper 90 save. And I said this the other day, when all they had to do is take a step to the right if their positioning was right and catch the ball. Right. They didn't even have to dive.
Right.
And by the way, we're not even talking about at just the youth level. I mean, I don't want to name names, but there are guys in MLS right now that if we were off the air right now, I would straight up say they never hit their ceiling because they were just willing to accept they were good enough to do this and that and this.
You're absolutely,
and didn't make things simple.
You're absolutely right. That's why Saskia and the Tims and the Tonys and those guys were in the 1 percentile. Because they had the athletic ability, and then they took the technique and they combined the two. And that's why you have the 1 percentile. Like, Saskia's a good example. So when Blodgett and I got her, she was by far the most athletic girl goalkeeper that I ever had the pleasure of being around. To this day, I mean, my experience with the women is not great. So I always go back to Saskia. And I think that's a good resource to go back to. But what I think changed it for Saskia was two things. One, Blodgett really hit upon her technique for saving the mundane shot, being clean on a ball hit right at you, dropping down to straight lines on low balls, like not wasting your athletic ability on things you don't have to, as Saskia just pointed out.
Yeah.
So if you can get the top goalkeeper to do that, then they're going to hit their ceiling, Mike, like you just said. The best goalkeepers combine athleticism with technique.
Absolutely.
And if you guys are wondering what we're referring to, just look at all the goalkeepers and Mulch, you can attest for this, you know, working in the U.S. pool, how many youth goalkeepers at the national team level never panned out where you guys had thought from an identification standpoint at the youth level to where they ended up in their professional careers.
No question.
Yeah, but even Blodgett, like even, you know, on the college side and the women's side and stuff like that, there's so many great athletes out there, but they just don't pan out. It's the same thing. It's
Yeah, well,
exactly
I think a lot of the problems go back to the word proactive and reactive. I think the older generation goalkeepers were, yeah, you got it, Sasha. The older goalkeepers, trainers were just, they just fire shots at the guys all the time, or the girls. Like they repetition. You're not really mastering any technique. Like my whole career has been based on technique, developing technique with goalkeepers. And I'm proud to say you can tell goalkeepers I've been training for years because their technique is pretty darn good, I think, and it's maintained. But today you got to help these kids understand and think. It's not about being reactive anymore. You got to have your athleticism, but you got to be able to think and understand and read the game. And that's where I think people like us who've been around the game for a long time and our teachers of the game use that to help them understand. Okay, this technique is good for this situation. In other words, we give them the tools. All right, we give them the tools,
absolutely.
And then how you use the tools, you got to learn how to use those tools and when to use them in what particular situations.
Yeah, I mean, I have a phenomenally athletic club goalkeeper, and like we'll be in practice and he'll make some great save, and his coach will look at me, oh, great save. I'll be like, that was the dumbest save I've ever seen, and I'm like, because had he been in the right position, and like I said, taking a step to his right, he wouldn't have had to dive. Now he made a great save and a tip over the bar or around the post, but now it's a corner kick. And I'm just like, yeah, you've got to get, like, I'm very proud of how technical I am. And you're right.
Well, you should be.
When I came in,
yeah.
I was an athlete, and I was, fearless and an athlete. But the reason my career went further was because you guys taught me that technical side of it.
So let's talk about the career, and let's talk about American goalkeeping. I kind of want to get into this with you guys because you guys have seen the gamut from the genesis of goalkeeping in the United States to where it is today. I kind of want to know, what is your thought on what is the American goalkeeper and what type of physical or mental traits kind of define them? Because there's been kind of a stereotypical American goalkeeper point of view from around the world, whether it's because of the fact that we've had a lot of goalkeepers go over to the EPL and into Europe, especially in that golden era of the late 90s, early 2000s. And people say the things just like, well, cross sport athletes, obviously Paul and Tim, both of you guys played basketball. What defines the American goalkeeper?
Who wants to take the first crack?
Oh my God. First, I'm giving a shout out to Shannon, who's watching, and I hope The Office looks better. Okay.
Shannon, get on that Office. Get on that Office,
She's in Connecticut, but she was giving me heat because last thing I didn't have it done up enough. I hope it looks a little bit better.
Well, it looks good. It looks good.
It looks solid. It's got the jerseys up.
Yeah, I like the jerseys.
I'm working on it. I'll hide the UCLA jersey.
No, it's okay. You can wrap it.
No, I think what we're talking about defines the American goalkeeper. I think the athleticism, the raw athleticism that we've gotten from a good core of young kids. But even when I was growing up, when you look at the Timmy Howards, when you look at Tony Miola, who could have played football, who I think played baseball too.
Yeah,
correct?
He was a baseball player at Virginia.
Yeah, and then I think he even tried out for the major league.
He was drafted by the Yankees.
See? So I think that there is that cross-sport athlete as a goalkeeper here in America. I think what is dying is that our kids don't do multiple sports and
agree with you,
cross
Sasha.
over.
Yeah, I agree.
I was recruited for college for lacrosse and not as a goalkeeper, as a center. So yeah, they tried to get me to play at Rutgers, but I didn't have the time. But I think that is something that is if you were to ask Tony, I would probably think Casey, Brad, a lot of
Brad Guzan, he was another multi-sport guy.
We were all multi-sport athletes. And
Well, I think a lot too, Saskia, is that our games are mostly hand-eye games.
right.
We catch, we throw, we catch, we bat, we hit tennis. It's a lot of the cultures around the world don't do that as much, and all our games are centered around that. So I think the things kind of separates us is our ability to be very good with our hands as well as the athleticism. But that's the only problem I have is seeing some of these kids are seeing like probably over in Europe they block a lot, and Matter of fact, I pulled up a video on an English goalkeeper training an 8-year-old. The first thing he taught him was put the knee down, spread the arms, and block at 8 years old. Not even to catch, So that's the mentality. Ours is different. We want to catch. We want to be good with our hands, and I think that really has helped separate us from a lot of the other goalkeepers in the world.
I have a pretty clear thought, Mike, on what I think the American goalkeeper should look like. Having been with the national teams for a bunch of years, I think the American goalkeeper typically, first and foremost, is courageous as hell.
Absolutely.
They're tough. They're tough mentally. The ones like Saskia and like the ones that, I don't know all the girl goalkeepers, but Hope Solo and obviously Brandon and the girls now, they're tough girls, like mentally strong. And on the guy side, it's the same. Like a prototypical American goalkeeper, you can throw the kitchen sink at, and they're unfazed. They're unfazed. So mentally, they're strong. They're courageous. They're tough. They don't back away from a fight. And then when you talk about the technical aspect, they're usually really clean because we have that ability through our athleticism to be clean technically. And then, of course, we have great athleticism. But the area that we need the biggest improvement is in reading the game. We don't play enough games. We go to too many training sessions without games. And
we got great practice keepers.
Correct. We need games that count as well for goalkeepers. And if you look at those the old guard of goalkeepers that I was talking about, like they were tough. They were in battles. Like they were in wars at different times. That they have that American mentality of we don't accept being in second place. And we may have taken this game up later than the European countries and South American countries, but we're going to give you all you can handle. 100%.
But I think, Tim, on that, I think that, and plus, we factor into all of our games.
Yeah.
And, speaking from being at Rutgers, like, I knew every single game, like, I factored into it in some way.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
And not taking any away from my, counterparts, like a Tracy Ducar or the keepers that were at, like, let's say a UNC or something, when they're seeing maybe a save a game or something.
Right. You're seeing a save a minute.
I went to Rutgers and Anson when he was a national team coach. He said, I was already with the national team. He said, I can't give you at UNC what you're going to see game wise, experience wise at Rutgers. He goes, and he said that to me. He said, every single game you're going to factor in and make a difference. And that will continue your career afterwards and keep you on the national team. And that was the conversation I had with Anson. Yeah, and he was 100%.
That's right. And he's right. And that's the American goalkeeper, Mike. He or she's an athlete. They're technically clean and they're courageous and brave. And they literally, they fear nothing. Like you can take all the combinations of athletes you want. And that's the one common factor that American goalkeepers have, is that they're athletic, they're technically clean, and they're tough as nails. Now we got to get better at the reading of the game. And Saskia is right that, that's why I like the academy, but I don't like the academy system in America. Because like Saskia she featured in every game at Rutgers, every game. And I go to these academy games, especially when I was with the youth national teams, and they're all playing for these really good teams. And they're making maybe a handful of decisions a game. And I've gone to the playoffs in the DA, and I've seen a kid lose at noon on a Saturday in the semifinals of the DA Cup. Not shed one tear. I lost my county championship as a junior in high school, cried my eyes out because it meant something.
Yeah.
It meant something. It meant something playing for your school with that pressure, with the playing in front of 1,000 people on a Friday night. If you look at the great goalkeepers that we've had or the great players that we've had besides, they've all done that. They've had to take on something bigger than just their club team. They had the responsibility that Saskia had. Like Saskia's a good example. Even Tony at Virginia, all those guys, when they were growing up playing club soccer or high school soccer, like Saskia at Rutgers, if she didn't play well, the team had no chance. No chance. So that's a responsibility that you can't manufacture in a goalkeeper session. You can't. And you can't, when you play for your academy team, I don't care if you're playing for Red Bulls Academy, what's your goal?
To make the first team.
Damn right. You don't care if you win on Saturday, but you take a kid and put him in front of his peers in a high school game when, he's playing his arch rival, and now there's 1,000 people in the stands, and he's going to know if he bobbles it and it comes up pear-shaped on Monday, he's going to hear about it. It's a whole different kettle.
I agree. Hold on. I've said that and I agree with that. And that comes back to the, whole, should I play for my school and should I play for my club? And what I've seen,
do both.
I 100% agree, because like, even when I was coaching the Archer Academy here, the all girls school, and some of the girls on that team were on my club team, there is nothing like having to perform with all your students sitting around that field, and then the next day going to school, and whether you won or lost, having to hear it, having people talk, and having that responsibility, as opposed to a bunch of parents in folding chairs on a sideline that are just wondering if they can go get their coffee or what's going on, and if they can make their event later that day. Like that is like epic pressure. And
that's right.
I
remember when I lost that game as a junior, I was more concerned about seeing the seniors on Monday because I knew their career was done. Now I had another year, but they were done.
Yeah.
Like I was worried about them. I didn't talk to my parents for the whole weekend. Like I just shut down, like, because it meant something. Like these academy games, like mom and dad, look, no offense, but you get into an academy game, the kids are usually the best player or one of the best players, right? So he's in goal. He takes 2 or 3 on the day. He's not giving it a fair assessment. Mom and dad are like, well, the defender's really bad. They should have, like there's no accountability. I think the games are great. They're a high level game and the training's good. You need both though. You need that experience.
Go ahead, Blodgett.
Yeah, I was just going to say at a point where I think some of these academies club teams that backed out of the academy on the girls' side, we just went back to ECNL, succumbed to the pressure the girls wanted to play in the school. They wanted that social aspect of the game. They wanted and like you said, they're really playing for something in their school, which is really a major part of their lives. So
absolutely,
so I don't think we as people should be telling these kids you can do this, you can't do that. If they want to play in something, they should be able to play in it. I don't understand the part.
And it definitely offers a different dynamic. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
There's like, number one, you're practicing every day after school. No, as opposed to maybe twice a week or 3 times a week for your club team or whatever it is for your academy. And like I said, there's a responsibility. You don't want to let your seniors down. You don't want to lose and have to see everybody the next day. That can't be. It can't happen in a club program.
Hold on. Go ahead. I was just going to say really quickly.
That goes to me, Mike. That's how you tie it into goalkeeping, though, because those are meaningful pressure moments that will shape them as they move on in their career.
Yes,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now I want to say right now, one of the parents just chimed in on the comment sheet right here, and they're saying, what about the states where you're not allowed to play high school and DA at the same time?
No, I agree. I think that's a problem, and I think
that's wrong.
I do too.
I think it's wrong.
I think that if you're with a club or if you're with somebody that says you can't do that, then find another club. I think it's wrong.
And it's funny. I've talked to all the better goalkeepers I had to deal with, from Tim to Brad, Tony. Those guys all would play for their high school in a moment.
Yeah. I was a goalkeeper and a forward for my high school.
Yeah. Tim Howard, Tony. I think Tony scored like 35 goals as a forward at Kearney, and Tim scored about that for North Brunswick High School as well. Like it helped them develop as soccer players as well. So it's unfortunate that you have to choose.
Especially with our position, because our position is basically a time-honored position. You get better as you get older, more experience. And the only way you're going to get that experience is by being thrown into the cauldron and being forced to make decisions under severe pressure. I know, like Mulch was saying, I deal with a lot of kids' parents saying, listen, my son's in goal where our team is really good. They're winning 6-0. And I says, is that good for him or her? I said, no. He's not getting exposed to anything. I'd rather have him go to a team that's not as good and give up 3-4 goals a game, but at least you're in situations where maybe they can start figuring out on their own. You know, they have to play. They got to have experience at different levels, you know. And for us as people to take that away from kids doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah,
Look-
and you know, and you're right at different levels, because if you're if you're this top goalkeeper and stuff, and you're playing for one of these teams where you're not, like we've said, where you're not really under that much pressure a game, or when you play for your high school team and the level is lower, and now you have to figure out the craziest situations ever, like crazy things that you would never probably see on an academy team, or like playing pro or moving forward. It's an education.
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, Mike, it goes to every level. So when Tim was at United, he chose to leave United. And Alex Ferguson had a conversation with him and said, you could stay here. Like, I want you to stay. I want you to be Van der Sar's number 2. But Tim knew that if he wanted a career that extended in England and also put him in position to be the number 1 for the US, he had to go somewhere and play. So Everton on loan, then they end up buying him. So it's a decision at every level. It comes down to what you truly want to get out of it. And for Tim, he wanted to be the nation's number 1, had to play somewhere, and that wasn't going to happen at United. So he goes to Everton, and the rest is history.
I want to bring that back in regards to what you guys were talking about in regards to the mentality of the American goalkeeper, tough, being able to deal with adversity. One of the issues, you know, look, there's a lot of great things about MLS academies. One issue that I'm seeing is that if you talk to a lot of Division I coaches, when a goalkeeper comes in from an MLS academy, they've literally never played in front of a crowd before, and they don't know how to do, because they never played for their high school. And if you're playing at UC Santa Barbara or Maryland or New Mexico, one of these locations like that, well, and you've never been in an environment like where you've had people literally on top of you in New Mexico, where they're literally behind you shouting and everything like that, and you've only been in a homogenized environment, well, that's not reality to the pro game. So yes, you're giving a professional training environment, but are you giving a professional game environment for these kids too?
First of all, Mike, you can't use big words like that. You're on the call with 3 Jersey guys, people. All right. I got to look it up right away to make sure I understand what it means, for God's sakes. Can we dumb it down? Can we dumb it down, please?
That's right. I'm the one that went to Rutgers.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I knew what it meant.
There you go. I by the construction of the sentence and the narrative, I figured it out as well. Jury's out on Blodgett. I can't factor in Blodgett.
Remember, boarding went to Rutgers. I understood you, Michael.
Oh, she's throwing out the Princeton card now. I knew that wouldn't be long.
Look, we have fans. We have fans that listen to the show who are like professors of law and things like that. So I have to throw some words in there for them to like take some credibility from me.
They're scratching their head with me, for God's sake.
Yeah, they're getting an education from us, then, aren't they, Mulch?
Yeah, I'll give them the Jersey lingo. But anyway, I agree with you. I agree with those coaches, and I agree that performing in front of again, goalkeeper is a pressure. Like, it's a pressure position. You spend a large part of the game by yourself with your thoughts, whether they're good or bad. You have to be able to handle that, and then couple in fans harassing you, jeering you. You know, some fans are very clever. They know the name of your family, your girlfriend.
Absolutely.
I mean, Jesus. I mean, so I think back to some of the moments I had in Central America during World Cup qualifyings, even with the youth national teams. It's insane. It's insane.
I'll tell you something. Some of the roughest fans in my entire career were not playing pro and we're not on the national team. It was at Rutgers.
Yeah.
When I had to play against UConn, and they had that stadium where the seats were behind the goal.
Oh my God, they're right on top of you.
Oh my
right
God,
on top of you.
They were just chanting and yelling, and if you made a mistake, they wouldn't let you go. And believe it or not, Cornell was the same way. And it was rough.
Yeah. The UConn thing is.
I got heckled at UConn was worse.
All the fans, all the students, the drunk students would get behind the goalkeeper
behind
of
the
away
goal.
team, and then when it's switched halves, they would go around and sit at the other half.
They switched halves.
Dave Yeager, I remember Dave Yeager was the second goalkeeper at Rutgers when I was there. He'd turn around, he would taunt them. He'd say, come on, bring it on, because he loved that stuff, and he always had his best games at UConn. because he fed into them. They just jeered at him, but he
I
just got
loved
all
it.
jacked up on it. It was great.
So-
It was great.
So, Mike, my question to you is, having
Yeah.
spoken to those goalkeeper coaches,
Yeah.
what's their remedy?
I mean, their remedy is that we need to replicate game-like environments, not just from a tactical standpoint and a technical standpoint in regards to the speed of play that's getting you ready for the professional game, but also the mental standpoint, getting you ready for the professional game. Speaking to sports psychologists, if you've never dealt with that type of pressure, you're going into an unknown, and those muscles, and I'm talking about those mental muscles, have never been used before. And it's just like any other muscle. If there's no muscle memory of it, well, it's going to take a while before there's that neuromuscular response where everything's connected, the whole body, and can deal with it. You're talking about Tim in that Belgium game, the Argentina game. Look, I mean, I've seen guys who've been in national pools, youth national pools, that brought up from a DA team into the youth national team, and they go to their U15 national team camp, and then they go and play a friendly against a solid CONCACAF country, let's just say, and they've never seen anything like that because their environment has been so sterile that it hasn't taught them those things. So we need to find a way to better prepare them, whether that's having them train with the first team and get beat up a little bit, those sorts of things, which I think is great that a lot of DA MLS academies are having those kids move up and play with the second teams and train with the second teams and the first teams. So they're in that environment, getting pushed around a little bit. I just think we coddle our goalkeepers at the youth level too much.
I agree, but I will say this I agree and disagree with the training with the first team.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, they're not expected to do anything. It's not like they're going to be like Tim tells a story about a player at Everton who got brought up from the youth team. He had to make it because if not, he was going back to the docks in Liverpool. Like that. All right. That's pressure, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You don't make it at, Red Bull's first team, and you're an academy goalkeeper. You're still living in Westfield. You're still living in Baskin Ridge. I mean, what have you lost? What have you lost? And I haven't coached, now coaching in the USL. We go to play Kansas City. We play in their stadium. There's 5 people there. So what's that kid getting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 people. You're better off loaning them out to an independent team where there's actually fans and they care and they're a part of it. I think bringing them up is great for catching the speed of play, training expectations, but no way am I convinced, having lived it, that replicates anything to do with match pressure. No chance.
No, that's true.
No, well, that shows the variance of the independent clubs a lot and the twos, for a lack of a better term, of MLS clubs. Sure. In the USL and why some of them have moved down to USL 1 from USL Championship because of that reason. You're absolutely right. There's a difference between playing at Phoenix Rising and playing at Sporting KC 2 or Toronto 2 or something like that.
Right. Because there's guys on Phoenix Rising whose mortgage depends on the young kid playing well.
Absolutely.
That's the difference in it.
Yeah, we just talked about that with the Northern
Ireland Goalkeeping Institute, yeah,
and their institute and their league, and how every team in that league, and everybody's got a mortgage to pay. Everybody, it matters.
Yeah, yeah, you're damn right. And until it matters like that, until there's a consequence for not performing, that's dire. You don't get that pressure.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the fact that Mulch, you brought this up at a goalkeeping license about probably maybe 10, 11, 12 years ago.
Jesus.
You brought up that we're in an emergency situation when it came to goalkeeping development in the United States, and people who were not goalkeeper coaches at that course started laughing because at the time we had Hope in goal for the women's program. We had Tim in goal for the U.S. program. Brad not that far behind him, and we even had Friedel still playing, who wasn't with the U.S. men's national team. But if we needed him, he would have been called up probably. And people were like, "What are you talking about? We have some of the best goalkeepers in the world." And you said, "No, you don't understand. where we've been taking goalkeeping development in this country based on where the other countries have taken it, watch what happens a decade from now. And a lot of those coaches, they laughed and they thought it was funny. And some of us goalkeeper coaches who were really studying the position and trying to learn saw what was going on in the advancements of the game in Europe and said, no, he's absolutely correct. We are in a disadvantageous situation right now. So 10 years later, after that comment that you made right there, what negatives and what positives have you seen in goalkeeping development here?
Well, thanks for listening, by the way. I appreciate that. That's
By the
my
way, that
first-
was after we broke down that Argentina US game. So
Okay, because that's my favorite game.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think where we're at now is I think we have a very, very small, unproven pool of goalkeepers. I really do. I don't think Zach Steffen's the closest thing we have to being ready. But if Zach Steffen, God forbid, what happens if Zach Steffen can't play? Who do we turn to?
we literally we don't know. I mean, the number 2 could be Sean Johnson. It could be
Sean Johnson, right? International experience, little. MLS experience, a lot, but it's MLS. I mean, and look, I love MLS. I've made a living in MLS, but the guys that we're talking about on the men's side who we relied on all applied their trade in Europe.
Yep.
Where the consequences are dire.
Yep.
And to Brad, Tim, Friedel, Keller, when things got hard for them over there, they stayed.
Yeah.
They found a new club and they stayed. Not so much anymore. Yeah, I don't want to name the goalkeepers, but they all come back. And they come back saying, oh, the MLS is a good league and there's nothing wrong with being comfortable. Well, the moment you become comfortable, you're doomed as an athlete. Doomed.
Yeah. Now, I'm sorry.
And the thing I think with our current goalkeeper situation is we have Zach Steffen, who's still, finding his way in Europe, but doing a good job. So I take my hat off to Zach. But it's funny how Zach was passed over on all the youth national teams.
Yeah.
Passed over. Never part of them. Now, if you turn away from Zach, you have Sean Johnson, who I love. I love Sean. I worked with him extensively. But again, is he a full international goalkeeper? I don't know yet. We're after Sean, we have Phil Hamid. Help me out. We don't have the pool where, look, the 2002 goalkeeping core was Brad Friedel, Casey Keller, Tony Mayola. Tim Howard was number 4. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
No,
in 06, you had Keller and Howard. In 2010.
Hi, Blodge.
Yeah, Blodge, I'll get to you in a minute, man. I'm on a roll.
Yeah, you're on a good one, too.
Yeah,
you're on a good one.
I'm not stepping in on this one.
No, but
I'm gonna go take my dog for a walk.
Sorry, but these are things like this is how pathetic I am. These are things I think about, because I care about goalkeeping and I care about it in this country. Having invested so much, I just don't think we have the pool that we think we have, and it's gonna. They have to. I think our better goalkeepers need to test themselves abroad.
Yeah, I agree. And what Mike was saying about you with the coaching course, I remember when you did the clinic for Dean Koski up in Bethlehem, where we kind of got back together again a little bit. Okay, you asked that same question, and it really started making me think a little bit more. And what I see is, because I deal mostly with youth development. I do my college thing and so on, but I'm teaching kids how to be technical and how to be as technical goalkeepers as they can be. But I see inconsistencies in these kids. They'll train with me for a winter session, 8-10 weeks, and they'll go off. I won't see them until the next winter session. You come back, all wrong habits, all bad habits. They're making mistakes. I don't think there's enough consistency in how we train the kids from the youngest levels and up. So at least they have a good solid base of a foundation of technical development that is correct, and then you can go off from there. Whenever I start a new session with kids, let's say I got 15 goalkeepers, and I'll say, okay, show me your set position. There's 15 different set positions. Some hands are down by their feet, some are outside their bodies, their hands are, it's ridiculous how some of these kids are. So they're not getting the fundamentals when they should be getting them, and that's hurting us now. You know, I mean, we got some tremendous athletes, like Saskia was saying earlier. These kids fly around, and the athleticism is really sick in some of these kids. But nobody takes enough attention, I don't think, of building the foundations, building the basics, so that when these kids actually kick into their bodies, when their hormones change and their athleticism kicks in, they don't have to work on their technique. Like, I love watching kids from 8 to 10 to 12 and 13 and 14 years old when they're technical before their bodies change, and then their bodies change and their athleticism kicks in, and their bodies grow and develop. It's amazing is what they can do with themselves. For the kids that don't have that base and foundation, up until after the bodies have changed, you have to work with them a lot harder to get them there, because it's just, they've had bad habits for so many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, I got a question for you, Mike. I got
Yeah.
a question for you.
Sure.
So if I put a gun to you, and Saskia, this goes to you as well. If I put a gun to your head right now and said, okay, we got to go to Honduras and win a game, who you playing in goal?
Brad Guzan.
Amen. Great answer. That's my answer as well.
I mean, I won't even hesitate because he's got experience in that situation.
So why have we cast them aside?
Brianna Scurry.
Well, okay. There you go. But no, that's fair. That's fair, Sas. That's fair.
Let's hold on. When we have Brian on the show, we got to.
I bring her out a retirement player.
Well, we can't bring people out of retirement now.
Okay.
Because I'm picking you on the women's side. All right, I'm picking you.
Thanks.
But I mean, seriously, Mike, why have we cast them aside?
I think the reason is because, I mean, personally, I think what the thing is that they're saying, okay, well, we're preparing for 2022, and that we see Zach as kind of our number one. It looks like Greg obviously has history with Zach already, so he knows him very well. They've been working on their system in regards to the possession system that they're trying to play out of the back. Brad is going to be 37 at the time of 2022.
Right.
And I think you bring up a really good point. Does it matter where Brad's going to be at 2022, or does it matter just getting to 2022? Because I think I think that's one of the issues we had in the last cycle.
Sure.
Is we were thinking ahead of ourselves, as in like, well, we're already going, so let's prepare for going, rather than like, we need to get there. I'll be honest with you. I think that happens when it comes to Olympic qualifying too, on the men's side.
Absolutely.
in regards to our selection process. We go,
well, I don't want to say that I was coaching the last team that qualified, but I'm going to throw out a shameless plug.
No.
I'm throwing out the shameless plug.
who was your goalkeeper? Sites, right?
Sites did qualifying. Guzan did the Olympics.
Okay.
And it was important for Brad. It was important for both guys. So Sites had the pressure of getting us to qualify. And then we had Brad, who had the experience of being with the full senior team during the Olympic Games. But my thing too, Mike, going back to this whole thing and why I ask you is, when we had those glory years of goalkeeping, right? Zach Steffen's been handled the mantle right now with no competition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tony had to fight Friedel and Kelly.
I had to fight.
Saskia had to fight Brianna every year.
The reason that we were together for so long was because it was a fight. It was constant.
Damn right.
And I spent a lot of my career on the bench, but
you fought her every day.
But I fought her every day.
And she got better knowing you were fighting her.
And we have so much respect for each other because
that's
of
right.
it.
So Friedel had to fight Keller and Mayola. And Tim had to fight Keller. Tim had to fight Guzan. Like, who's Zach fighting?
Who's fighting? Yeah.
And I love the fact that you're bringing up that point. And I think the problem is, if you look at that generation, that Zach generation, which by the time the first time that I really took notice of Zach personally was the U20 World Cup. U20 World Cup, I thought he had a phenomenal, and I think that's the
Great
performance that got him to Freiburg. And then obviously for him, it was a good decision for him to come back to MLS and get first team minutes and perform. And obviously that got him back over to, okay. All right, Tim's got a different opinion on that one.
That's okay though. We can agree to disagree.
I mean, but basically what I saw there in that generation is that the only other guy in that class right now is Ethan Horvath, and he doesn't get minutes at Bruges.
No,
he's sitting behind Mignolet.
Right. Why wouldn't you bring in Brad then? What Brad could teach Zach off the field as well. Well, Zach's Brad's been through the wars of tough English football. He's been a part of World Cup qualifying. What he can mentor is to me is well worth having.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly important. Like even on the women's side,
That's right.
Which
Yeah.
you don't get the minutes, and that's probably rostered for over 200 games, but I did not get a chunk of minutes and stuff. So I think that to be able to bring in, I would do the same thing, to be able to bring in somebody that can mentor them, that if something happens, that has the game experience and the minutes and everything, is more important than that age old thing where I'm going to bring up a bunch of young kids. They're not going to play. And if you do have to play them, they have no experience.
Right.
And then you're like, well, why is he like all thumbs, or why did he screw up? Well, maybe because he's not playing, he doesn't have any minutes, and you just threw him into, a packed stadium in this pressure situation. Now, granted, I would hope that most goalkeepers can step up to that, but we all know there is nothing that makes you ready for playing in a World Cup, qualifier, unless you've done it.
That's right. And
Yeah,
credit to Tony with you, Saskia, because you always got enough to be ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If something happened to Brianna, and by the way, it was always a close battle. Always a close battle. Like it could go either way, right?
Yes.
And it was very comfortable. Following your career at the time, what a great position for a head coach to be in. Like you could lose your 1, knowing that you have a 1A.
Yeah.
Not a 2, a 1A.
Thank you. Although I will tell you a story that when she got hurt in that first game of the World Cup at Giant Stadium, and I was getting up and getting my shit together and putting my gloves on, and I couldn't find things. I was fumbling around, and then she got up and walked off. Tisha Venturina turned to me and she was just like, do you have to go like change your shorts now? No, because that's my point. There was the Giant Stadium was sold out. There was 79,000 people, and Brianna goes down in the first 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh shit, and I couldn't find my glove. And Tisha's like, yeah, go change your shorts.
That's great.
Speaking of the competition thing, I always encourage goalkeepers to get on teams to fight for a job.
Absolutely.
Some of these club teams only have one goalkeeper, and I say, why? It's good, and they should be sharing games as well. But these kids, matter of fact, one of the director of coaching for a club in Jersey came to me. He wanted me to help with his teams, and he said that my goalkeepers don't know how to compete, and that really hit me a lot, because every time we end our sessions when I teach, we always play a game called Shadow, and these kids compete against each other, trash talk. It's like I spend 10, 15 minutes doing that because number one, they're leaving this training session on an incredible high, but number two, they're just competing against each other and just working their butts off and loving doing it, So I don't think that at younger ages, our goalkeepers compete enough, even if it's just in training, 1v1 games or, goalie war games or anything like that. Like when we were down at Tim's camp, I remember watching Tim play in the goalie war tournament against the kids, and how the kids got fired up for that.
Oh, yeah.
But then you saw Tim's really competitive nature come out. He wouldn't allow them to lose. But I think they need to compete more. We got to.
I agree. I agree.
And on that note, a lot of these clubs that don't bring in more than one keeper or have more than one keeper, I think it's ridiculous. Like
I do too. And mom and dad will shop them around to go to the club that is promising them minutes. Yet mom and dad will be the same group who says, "Oh, we need competition at right back. Oh, we need competition at center back. Oh, no, but we don't need competition in goal."
Right.
Like there's only one. There's only one goalkeeper that can play.
Because that means my kid plays the whole game.
Right. Like that's insane. Like it's not rational.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and I think that creates this, when you're talking about creating these monsters at the youth level.
By the way, Hannah Mitchell just said shadow.
She's one of the talk about competition. That girl is nuts in that game.
Oh, she's
nuts.
An intense one, man. I love training her.
I want to bring up one issue that I'm seeing in regards to the American goalkeeper now that I think is affecting us, is that I would say that youth goalkeepers today are more football savvy than they were in the past, and
100%.
As in they understand the game better. They're much more football players as opposed to just goalkeepers. What I think is missing is the actual discipline of the goalkeeping position from a shot stopping standpoint, from a positional awareness standpoint, because they're so busy trying to hit a perfect side volley.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not kidding.
No,
you
you're
know,
100% right.
because
It-
they watch the European game and they think it's all about just hitting clean balls.
Or not holding on to a shot.
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about the pairing thing. It's not even about just handling. I think a lot of goalkeepers need to understand that when you block save, you're still playing the ball into a good space. You need to play it into a good space. You can't just parry a ball and just hope for the best that it's not hit right back into a danger zone and then there's a second ball
It drives
that
me
you can't do anything
crazy.
about.
It's
You know?
like I did not shoot the ball that hard at you that you had to do.
Right. You're right.
Shoot the
Look,
ball.
rebounds are the bane of goalkeeping, right? I mean,
Yeah.
leaving balls in bad spots, they kill you, you know, but I go back to, again, it's training. It's what's important. Like I hate, like when I was with the national team, you'd get a youth goalkeeper coach would call me and say, he's great with his feet. All right, but can you stop a ball?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if he's great with his feet. He's not wearing the number 10. Like, he's got to keep the ball from going behind him. That's the first requirement.
Yeah.
Right. Once he can show me he can do that, then I'll listen to his feet.
Yeah.
But like, until he can save a shot and be consistent with it, nothing else matters. And you're right, Mike. They fall in love with the sidewinders and the $180 gloves and everything else that goes with it. Like, that's not important. What's important is, can you keep the ball from going behind you?
Yeah.
Right. That's a great point.
And being able to understand how to defend the areas, because, and I talked about this, and this is where I think that the European development has surpassed us, is understanding how to defend the different areas of the field. I still think in the American game, our problem is that we don't focus, and Saskia and I, we talked about this on one of our last podcasts. We don't focus on organizing until our team has lost possession of the ball, rather than when we have possession of the ball, making sure we understand where our position is based on the area that the ball is in the game.
Right. No, 100%. It's that resting defense that we have to have.
Your organization, when our team's in the attacking third, your job is not to be yelling shoot or where to pass the ball. Your job is to already be organizing your back line, even if they're at midfield, so that if the ball gets turned over, they're already in position for it.
Right.
Because once the ball gets turned over, you're just playing catch up.
You know, I see one of the things I hate to see. Yeah, one of the things I hate to see, and I see it all the time, is driving around and see these youth games where the ball's down at the other end, and you got, you know, the 10-year-old, 11-year-old goalkeeper, you know, picking dandelions or something like
hanging
that.
on the net.
Hanging on to the net. Exactly. No, it's just, you know, it's such a disservice to those kids. You know, get them involved in the game right away.
For me, Mike, that goes to goalkeeper coaching.
Absolutely.
Right. So when I go and observe a session or watch a goalkeeper coach, so he'll do his goalkeeper session, right? And to harp on what you're talking about as far as leaving balls in bad areas, part of it is the insanity of the exercise is about survival. It's not about where I need to put a ball. Like, because you're dealing with 4 different actions on one exercise. You know, you may be saving a ball low to your right and then get up and have to sprint and save a shot to your left. I've never seen that happen in a game, ever. So why do we train it? And then what leads me to my next point is, now we leave that bogus goalkeeper training thing because it's all based on just, can I beat them up? Yeah. Now they go into a small-sided game, and the goalkeeper coach grabs his drink and stands at midfield and talks to the head coach. Doesn't help the goalkeeper with his decisions, doesn't help him with his starting spot, doesn't help him with his organization.
I'm so different. I stand in the goal behind my keeper.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to, because that's the only way you can see what they see.
Except now at UCLA, I say behind the goal because they kick really hard.
Yeah, that's fair play. Fair play, Saskia. I'm not getting it either.
I'm not in the goal anymore.
Yeah, you have to coach those moments, though. You can't let that go by. You have to coach those moments. Be it in college, be it in pro, be it in youth, wherever it is, you have to coach those small-sided games.
You know what's amazing? You know what's amazing to me is, like, when the college in New Jersey, it's one of the best women's programs in the country.
Absolutely.
And the goalkeepers come in. Like my goalkeeper, I had just a senior, just going to graduate this year. When she came in, she was a very good athlete, tremendous hands, very good technically. She worked with Birkenmeyer, by the way, but she had really no knowledge of how to run a game, how to organize a defense, which she could somewhat. But I mean, she was was like a sponge in learning of tactical parts of the game because she didn't know it. You know, and it's amazing to me how many kids get at that level at some of the best schools in the country and still don't understand what's going on in front of them, how to run the game, what are the situations that I can control. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's even like when I'll get it behind them and like I'll let them make the mistake. Like I want to see what's going on. And even when it's small-sided, like I'll look and I'll be like, push your team up.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
you know, you're playing small-sided, you're falling into the whole thing where everybody's backing up on you. And now you've got like, it's a shooting gallery, you've got everybody in your way. You're not pressuring the shot. Make the field smaller, push your team up the same you would. And like, it's just those like, not understanding those things, not understanding how to manipulate the situation to make it an easier save or no save at all for yourself.
But that's our job as coaches to coach them through that.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I want to bring this up because I'm going to get to say something nice about mulch from here.
You get
too.
to edit this. I have to go to the bathroom because I'm old.
Okay, go to the bathroom. We'll be back. We'll edit that part out. Even though Saskia doesn't understand how a live stream works, that's totally cool. She'll be back for the podcast. We'll edit this out. I want to bring this up because I think one of the number one issues that I see with youth goalkeeper coaches out there, especially younger youth goalkeeper coaches, is they don't train recovery position. That to me is something that I work on so much with my goalkeepers currently, because a lot of goalkeepers, especially at the youth level, think once the initial save is made that their job is done. They don't. My personal feeling is that the second I make a save, if that ball's spilled on a second ball, my recovery movement's the most important thing. Where am I going to position myself to cut off angles so there's no gap open so that I can help my team delay to allow for the shot to not go on frame, those sorts of things. Is that something that you guys see at the same time as well, is also very much lost in a lot of goalkeeper training?
No question. So like it's gotten to the point where I forget, I think it was Blodgett mentioned, it becomes blocking, right? Or Saskia even said it too. Like a goalkeeper will make a save and be satisfied that they left it in a certain spot.
Yeah.
Like when you, at the highest levels, the goalkeepers have a place where they're putting the ball. They dictate where the ball is going to go.
Yeah, you're not just randomly pairing a ball. You're
correct.
You're directing it into
an area that you can function in. And
that's why people call it steering as opposed to just blocking. Yeah,
correct. Yeah. And I always tell goalkeepers too that if it's in tight and I have very little time to steer it right or left, I got to get it to bounce over the hip of the striker, because now they're going to have to take it down and take a touch, which allows me to get to my feet.
Right.
Hold on. I want to take a note of that. That's awesome. I've never heard that before. I love that.
Yeah.
Say that again. The hip?
Yeah, it has to bounce over the hip.
Okay.
Because that allows me to get up, because they're going to have to either hit a worldie and like a side volley of some sort, and I'll take my chances on that.
Or they're going to have to touch it.
They're going to have to two-touch it, which allows my defender to close them down, allows me to get to my feet, allows me to find my new angle.
Right.
So there's got to be a method to why we put balls where we do. And even on the ones we can't, we got to beat them into, I tell the keeper, beat it into the ground, get it above the waist.
I think my biggest issue with this is that these kids now, the younger kids, they go in with the thought process, I'm going to block the ball or parry the ball.
Correct.
And it's the same as that. Like, remember when you see kids going, I told Michael this, going to box a ball on a corner, and it's right.
Well, Saskia thinks you can catch everything, so that's.
You guys taught me to catch everything.
Damn right.
Elgato here. I catch everything. I hated boxing a ball. I hated parrying a ball if I didn't have to. I wanted my hands to the ball, two hands to the ball, and hold on to it. I don't want to give you another chance.
No, it's the safest spot when it's in your hand. You know, I end all my sessions with 20 seated volleys, and I did it with Saskia back in the day. Like
all of my keepers listening. See?
So no, hold on. So you're the one who I got that from. I am that too. I didn't realize that's where I got it from. Because I do that with youth keepers all the time. With 20 volleys.
It's got to be a clean catch.
It's got to be clean.
Otherwise you start all over again.
No, else it just doesn't count as one of the 20.
Oh, okay. Well, I make them start all over again. I guess
you could be there forever.
How long do you have to coach?
Yeah. My leg will fall off, man.
Yeah, Mike, you brought up a point earlier, how the kids parry a ball and they get up, like they don't really care about the recovery run or what to do next.
Yep.
When I train my kids, is like we might have maybe 10 different things you're doing in an activity in 15 seconds, to say, okay, whether you're receiving a ball to their feet and knocking it to a target, then doing some footwork and making a catch, then distributing the ball out. What do you think you'll see these kids do? Let's say they start with a volley to the hands, and then they're supposed to toss the ball back to the server and then go over and do something else. You see these kids a lot of times, they'll just throw the ball anywhere they want to without even caring whether to toss the ball back to the server or not.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so what I teach them to do is to stay. We got 8-10 different moments going on in there. They have to stay with every single one before they go to the next one.
Absolutely.
So you're actually mentally training them to stay in a moment and always realize that even when you're done, there's still possibly something else to do. So end up in a set position, get back in the recovery position, whatever. So you don't just stop. You know, there's always something else to do. And it takes time. You got to train these kids to do it because they won't do it on their own.
It's so funny because hearing you guys is like, I know where I've learned everything. It's just like, it's so funny. It's like, if to any of my goalkeepers that thought I was original, apparently I'm not. But yes, I put my hands on my head because it drives me crazy because they're on to the next situation before they complete the save that they have to make.
You always say there's one ball in the game. There's one ball in the game.
You've got to make this clean, make this right.
That's right.
And if your positioning's wrong, readjust your position, then throw me the ball back. And I love it because Hannah does that. And I know she comes from Blodgett.
Yeah.
You know? And she takes that long pause and she makes sure her hands are right and throw it back. And I'm like, all right, it was right. Come on. No, just kidding.
I can't tell you how many times.
She's so efficient with that. It's incredible.
Yeah, she is.
I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a kid, when I tell them nose and chin to the ball before you give me the ball back, they look at me like I'm an alien. Like no one's ever told them before to make sure they have the full handle of the ball before they move on to the next rep.
But you know what?
It blows my mind.
But it moves on into, and what they don't realize is if you're a goalkeeper coach and you're not making that point to them to finish the save and do it properly and everything, it goes, I'll watch kids in training and it goes into the way they distribute the ball. Like when they're playing small sided, they catch the ball and they'll just give it to their player without like being precise and doing it properly and doing it professionally. And it's that lackadaisical stuff that you're just, they're just relearning it. I'm sorry, it drives me absolutely nuts.
No, you're right. I mean, I always say to the guys, look, deal with one before you go with two.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, on the
that's
national team, if I gave somebody a lackadaisical bad ball, it'd be pinged right back in my face.
Yeah.
So true story. So when I played, it was back like it was the old Alphabet League. It was the APSL at the time. And
APSL?
Yeah, American Professional Soccer.
Are you looking that up right now, Mike?
Yeah. Peter Vermes played in it, all those guys.
That sounds like a league that was made up because they didn't get the FIFA license in
the
video game.
It was 1989, right? But this is how old I am. So Aleko Eskandarian's dad, who had played for the Cosmos, was on my team. And I remember I claimed the cross, and I was so excited I actually caught a cross, which was foreign to me. And I stung a ball out to him, and he let it go. And it went right to Stevie Wagerly. He shot it, and it goes wide. And I looked at him like, what are you doing? He goes, oh, that pass wasn't meant for me. If it was meant for me, you would have rolled it to me at the proper pace.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, lesson learned, but in the middle of the game, like maybe in training. But I never made that mistake again. If I played the ball out, it was appropriate to the right foot at the right pace.
I want to talk about that real quick because we brought up Timmy Howard's game in 2010, the Algeria game, and the throw. Right. And personally, like we were talking about this earlier, is that throwing is a lost art. A lot of goalkeepers nowadays, they don't even think about when the ball's in their hands. Quickest form of distribution, the ball's already in your hands, is to play it out with your hands. The first thing they do is put the ball down on their feet. First thing they do. And I see this and it drives me crazy because I'm like, time and place for everything. Are you trying to delay the game? Are you trying to play a quick counter? You don't have to hit everything with your feet if you already have a play with your hands.
Because most of them can't throw.
Right. And to hear Tim describe that, it's a very good point. To hear Tim describe that play, so I guarantee you 99 out of 100 goalkeepers with time running down is marshaling their team up the field, and they're going to punt it into the other opponent's half.
Yeah.
But he we always talked about it since he was a young kid. You get it from the left, you look to the right.
Yeah.
You get it from the right, you look to the left. So he got it from the left, he looked to the right, and he saw Landon, who's the fastest guy in the field. So he gave him the ball. Like, it was just
Absolutely.
mental repetition of doing it in training. Okay, I get it from the left, I play to the right.
Absolutely.
That in the critical moment, he made that decision, and the rest, is U.S. soccer history. So again, it's training.
I was always super proud. I'm not patting myself on the back, but it is a lost art because one of my biggest strengths was my throwing. And I knew I could on the run find my outside midfielder, outside winger making that break. And I didn't have to kick it. I could put it right on their foot in their stride. And that was something I was taught at Rutgers. It was something I was taught on the national team. And it was to find that space, lead that player at the right pace, and an immediate counter.
Yeah, like there should be nothing, Mike, that you don't have in your toolbox.
I think it comes down to reps, because I watch a lot of these youth sessions. And they don't work on a push throw and a windmill and an overhead throw and a solid bowl. Or the coaches are cool with there's a little bit of bounce there. There's right. This and that. Absolutely. The ball's a couple of yards off there. And I always tell a young goalkeeper coach, I go, okay, if they had played that ball with their feet, would you have broken that down and said how that ball should have been?
But it's also the proper throw. The throw has to be thrown right so that it's got a backspin, so that it dies on the foot, so that it doesn't bounce up. I told you this. I used to stand during the winter. I used to stand on the basketball court at Rutgers University with a bag of soccer balls, and I do full court and half court throws into the hoop with a windmill. Because the only way it was going in was if it had a backspin. If it was perfectly lined up, if I did it perfectly over, if it came off my side, it was never going in. And I used to stand out there and do that. And it's a lost art. Nobody's teaching it. And even some of the keepers I teach now, I'm like, okay, quick counter. And they toss the ball on the ground, they roll it back, and they look to kick it. I'm like, you just lost 2-3 seconds.
Yep.
It's funny.
It's actually embarrassing to see how some of these kids throw a ball.
It's funny.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. It's horrible. Even at the collegiate, even at the college Division I level.
Yeah. You know where you see it? You know where you see it really well? So like Tim jumps in and trains with us, obviously, because he's playing. So we'll play small-sided games with bumpers.
By the way, shout out to Tim for doing that, by the way.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Awesome.
It's
he's
great.
Still young.
Those younger guys got to be learning so much.
He's still young.
Yeah, no, they are. And he's kept himself in terrific shape.
I love it.
It's great for me. It's fun for me to be around them every day like that. So it's great. But his ability to throw the ball in those small games.
To the bumper?
To the bumpers. It's such a weapon.
Well, see, and this, we just went over
the other guys put it down and try to kick it to him.
Or they go right.
Tim's already whipped it.
Yes,
and it's already done and dusted.
Amanda said this to me, and we were running small-sided games at practice, and the keepers kept putting the ball right to their sides, right next to them, or putting it down, kick it. And she stopped everybody. She goes, when we played, and Saskia, you were in goal, you would make a save, and that ball was immediately on the attack. It was immediately up high, wide to the bumper, and we were already having a shot off.
Sure.
And you're looking to thread that needle. You're looking up high and everything. And the kids don't do that anymore. They don't.
I think a good point you bring up there is that a lot of these kids don't understand controlling the tempo of a game.
Right.
If it's too slow to get speeding it up, or if they're getting hammered, how to slow it down. It's that's a really good point. These kids should know all the different ways of playing with the tempo in the game.
And the situation that you're in. If you're up in a small-sided game, then albeit roll it out next to you and keep possession, or go high and keep possession. Absolutely.
This is what I always tell young keepers, is that like if you were a field player and your head was down, you put your head down to put the ball down on the ground right there. You saw a field player doing that when their head was down when they collected the ball at their feet. What happens? Well, there's immediate pressure. So now you've already that space that was open is now already closed off. Yeah. So you can't see the field. So now your points for distribution has become limited because of that. So whenever you win a ball with your hands, you've got to be looking up and being able to scan the field.
You're absolutely right. Great point, Mike.
You should also know where your open space is. You should have already taken a snapshot of the field and know, like you said, Tim, to go out wide. You get it on the left, you go out to the right. It's going to be there. Yeah. And that's where you automatically look. I just think it's such a weapon that doesn't get trained anymore. Kids don't know how to throw. It's kind of like horrendous to see how some of them
It is.
throw.
It's
I mean,
embarrassing.
whether they're throwing like it's a baseball or
Oh,
I don't even know. Like
it's embarrassing.
it's embarrassing. It's
I've
embarrassing.
watched MLS Academy kids. I've watched Division I college boys, and I'm like, dude, so you're just doing what you've been doing since you were 9 years old. Like no one's really broken down the technique for you at all.
You know, I tell you, you know who could throw the ball? Throw the hell out of it is your boy John Conway, who's coming.
Oh
up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, could he whip that thing?
And his brother Scott.
I don't know Scott, but John
Oh,
can
yeah.
throw the hell out of
Because
it.
the point is that what's in my opinion, I know that how good, like efficient I was at throwing that ball, that I could, and the distance I could get on it, and it being a line drive and on point was much better than me putting the ball on the ground and trying to ping it into somebody or half volley it into somebody or side volley it into somebody on the run.
Yeah, we're
And-
goalkeepers. We're not field players. Use your hands. That's what we. That's our advantage.
But that is an issue. That is an issue. Is that
Yeah,
a lot of goalkeeper and like Tim, you were bringing it up earlier. A lot of goalkeepers now want to be number 10s. They just do. They do.
And you know, it's funny because I watched, you know, and again, if I was to tell young goalkeepers and young goalkeeper coaches things now, I would tell them too, like, don't just watch YouTube clips. Like, go back and watch full games.
Yes.
Because then you understand tempo and the reason why decisions are made, right? But anyway, I was watching a goalkeeper session online, and the warm-up was the goalkeeper received the pass. He checked over his shoulder, turned, and played the other way. And I said to myself, when in God's name
Do you have to check
would a
over your
goalkeeper
shoulder?
check over his shoulder? Is someone
Wait,
coming
check
out
over their
behind
shoulder
me?
like they're in center mid?
Yeah, and why would I turn? What am I turning to? Yeah, that was part of the warm up, and they were being instructed as not like that. They were doing it wrong.
To check over your shoulder?
Yeah, I'm saying to myself, what planet am I in? Like this is insanity to me. It's not practical. Again, it's goalkeeper coaches trying to invent something that's just not there. That's just not part of the game. And that's the biggest problem I have with these young goalkeeper coaches. They invent things, and it's not just young. I mean, I see it in the MLS level too with some of the guys they have. Like, it's not rocket science. I'd like to think I'm a real smart guy, but I'm not. Like, it's simple. It's simple. I don't need to check over my shoulder to receive a back pass because there's no one behind me. So why do it? Why do it?
But I think also by the way, I just want to see these like
Way to check to the ball. Way to check to the ball. Good job.
these Xavi-like sessions that are taking place with these goalkeepers. That's just Cruyff turns going on too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And then we
We've been
wonder why
laughing
he
about
leaves
it
a
for a
rebound
while.
2 feet in front of him.
yeah. I think one thing that's lost, and I want a lot of young goalkeeper coaches out there to hear this, is that think about all the elements that go into the play. There's the initial shot, into the handle, into the distribution. There's the distribution into the ball being played back out, to the loss of possession, to the shot. We need to make sure that we're incorporating all the different facets of the game in our sessions. It just can't be. They can't be single-handed, like okay, so now we're doing all possession, or now we're doing all shot stopping, or
Right.
now we're doing all distribution, because they all come into play.
Well, I always
Right, but
tell
I
my
would caution-
I always tell my keepers, like, they have to think this way. If you have the ball, you're the first pass on attack. So you're not just getting rid of it in a sense, like you're and you get a lot of keepers, they just want to get the ball the hell away from them and stuff. But you, as younger keepers, you have the decision you make with your distribution, with your throwing, with anything, positioning is your first pass on attack. How is that incorporating into us getting into their defensive third and us going to goal?
And Mike, I think you're absolutely right that we need to incorporate that stuff into our sessions 100%. It can't all be in one drill though.
No.
And that's my biggest.
So people are overcomplicating their activities, basically.
Right. We laugh, but we see it. And, we wonder why goalkeepers have sloppy technique. It's because they're dealing with 4 or 5 balls per set. Well, you would if you have to deal with more than 2 saves, then the house is on fire. There's some seriously bad stuff going on in your team right now that you have to make multiple saves like that.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. So
That's true.
like for me, you don't train for the abstract. I don't train for when the house is on fire. I train for what's going to happen 99% of the time, which is I'm going to have to make a save. I may need a starter ball to move me into the save, or I may have to create a rebound. So I'm going to go start low and get up and make a save. Those are things that I think, and again, then from that save, maybe I throw the ball out for my distribution piece. But we can't have it all wrapped up in the one exercise, because then the goalkeeper loses the message of what you're trying to get to in your session.
Right.
Okay. I have a question for all you guys right here. If you were giving advice to a young goalkeeper coach here in the United States, what are like a few words of wisdom or bullet points you would give them as they begin their journey to go on the right path?
Blodge?
Well, I would make sure that they know the position. It's you get a lot of people get thrown in, like parents and so on. Their kid is all of a sudden being the goalkeeper, and now they say, "Listen, your son's a goalkeeper. Why don't you start training him?" You got to educate yourself. You know, my biggest fear when I started was I just wanted no drills, because I was going to be embarrassed to get out there and not have them be doing something that looked like being goalkeepers. But what I learned along the way is that by watching them in a game, watching how they're training, then you start understanding what you have to do to get them better. And so it's not so much of just getting out there and putting them through stuff. You have to really get yourself absorbed in your training and make sure that what you are teaching that particular person is correct for them, and reinforce it and be positive with them. I mean, I see a lot of these younger guys and girl coaches, they just mentally beat up the kids,
Oh,
you know,
right.
and there's times to do that, but if you continuously do that, I mean, you're going to shatter the kids' confidence right away. So it's important to build their confidence as well as their technique. Stay positive with them. And I also like to try have them educate the parents as well. You know, I mean, parents just sit up in the stands and they see the ball go through the kid's leg, and you got, you know, Mrs. Smith down below telling that kid should never be a goalkeeper. He sucks. And when nobody really knows what led up to that, or understand maybe what led up to that situation.
Right.
So it's not a simple position to train. And if you just think you're going to go out and read a book and just take, you know, copy the book into your training sessions, it's not going to always work. You're not going to really get to the kids the way you need to, because you have to be a teacher. You have to bring it to their level. You got to get them absorbed, and then you got to let them know that you care and that you're there to help them be the best they can be, whatever level they are going to be. Like I always tell kids, I know I can help you be the best you can be, but it doesn't have to be professional level. It doesn't have to be the national team level, unless that's where you want to go. You know, if you want to play in high school, we'll make you the best you could be in high school. So it's a lot of factors that these people have to understand. It's just not going out there and kicking the ball at a kid. Because, yeah, if you just want to catch and work at hand, something like that, but still a lot going into catching the ball. Like one thing that Saskia was saying when she watches Hannah, one of the things I put in the kids' heads when they're learning to catch a ball is get the ball in the hand and look into the ball after it's in your hands. Now their eyes are engaged all the way through. A lot of these kids will, as the ball is coming into their hands, they turn their head and drop their eyes, and they'll drop it, and they don't understand why. Or like when I'm teaching young kids, I do a technique, like just like a go down for a hands low catch to say. They got to hold the technique, the finishing technique, for 1 second. Now they're feeling the finish. I don't think a lot of goalkeeper coaches have these kids feel what the finish is like. Mm-hmm. Because I believe if the finish is perfect, then everything leading up to that finishing point is probably going to be right on. If you're finishing things in the wrong position or the wrong technique, you're actually mastering a mistake. So, you know, there's a lot to go into it, but as long as you're diligent and studying the position yourself, watch the game on TV, go to guys like Moats and Saskia, and when they're doing clinics and things like that, that's the way you learn what you can do. And then you got to put your own personality into it. You know, you got to let the kids know that you're involved, that you care, and you want to help them out. So I think that's a good start for those guys.
Yeah.
You want to go, Saskia, or me?
I would say, go ahead, Tim.
Okay. So for me, Mike, drawing on my own experiences, one, they need to be confident. I think you need to go in that you own the session. Like you're fair, because the better goalkeepers will eat you alive otherwise. So you have to be confident. The second thing is you have to have a clear idea in your own head of what you want your goalkeeper to look like. So you have to have that thought, like, okay, this is what I want my goalkeeper to be. And then your third thing you have to have is you have to have the ability to take a training session and bring that vision to life. Those are the three things you have to have. If you can't do those three things, you're not going to be successful. So you have to have confidence. You have to have a vision of what you want a goalkeeper to look like. And then your training session has to bring that goalkeeper to life.
Points, Tim. Like it.
I love that.
Hey,
That was awesome.
My two mentors, nothing really to add there, other than you got to know the game, man.
Yeah.
I think we find a lot of people call themselves goalkeeper coaches. They played in college or they did something and they become your club goalkeeper coach. Do they really know the game? Do they really understand the game, the position, and how to actually break it down so that when your goalkeeper is doing something wrong, in a bigger picture or smaller picture, you can actually sit them down or stand there and really explain it to them.
You bring up a good point, because a lot of these kids, even when they go to colleges, one of the first things I tell the kids when they ask me for help about college recruiting, all that stuff, make sure you ask if they have a goalkeeper coach. It amazes me how many colleges, soccer programs don't have goalkeeper coaches. It's ridiculous. Why you want to go to school when you're not going to have somebody there to mentor you? They says, oh, well, they have a field player that graduated or something like that. It's just taking hits at you. That's not going to work either. You have to mentor these kids. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
No, one thing I want to add to that is for young goalkeeper coaches out there is a couple things. One is that don't focus so much on learning drills. Like, you guys notice how all these coaches right here just said, learn the game. Learn the demands of the game too. Like Nathan Thackeray from NC Courage, said on the podcast a few weeks back that you need to understand the demands of the game that your kids are playing, whatever that age group is, in order to be able to coach them properly. I always tell people whenever they go, oh, where'd you learn that drill? Where'd you learn that drill? I'm like, I don't honestly know, because some of these drills I just came up with just from understanding the game and understanding what I was looking for in the session. And I love what Mulch said about having a vision of what the goalkeeper is going to look like and develop your session to get that result out of that goalkeeper is absolutely brilliant. That's just next level to me right there.
Yeah.
And I think one of the issues with social media is that people are so focused on learning drills by watching YouTube rather than understanding the context that these
You don't
drills are
want to
being
do
done in.
You don't want to do the skip drill off the water in the ocean.
I haven't seen that one, but that sounds great.
It's a good one.
I gotta find that one, Sask. I haven't seen that.
Off the low water, skip it up, rebound. Yeah,
Brilliant.
All right.
Brilliant.
By the way, guys, we've almost gone 2 hours. This
I
is
know,
this
we
is
did.
absolutely incredible. This has been so great.
Well, I
wanna-
apologize for talking so
No,
much.
we
this
miss
is
each
incredible.
other.
Are you kidding me? I want to end this episode, and we'll have to keep doing this, guys, because you guys are such a wealth of knowledge, and we're just so humbled that you guys are willing to come on the show.
We have to get
give your
Timmy
information.
in here. We got to get Miola in here.
That would be great. They can critique my performance.
Hey, if you guys
you're
are
the boss, man. They'll listen to you.
If you guys are willing to help out with that, I think if I sent out a tweet to either one of those guys, they'll be like, "Oh, we have no idea who this guy is. We're not going to respond to this."
I think Saskia and I could pull some strings here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be amazing. It would just we could do a year of just Jersey content.
I'd love to hear.
Amen.
I'd love to hear some Antonio stuff.
So I want to say, for the end, I want you guys to share some Saskia stories for our audience here.
Wow.
Well, you're the best storyteller I know.
Yeah, I know, but I got to clean it up. No, I think for me, like the moment I knew like Saskia was different gravy was, so like I was young when I coached Saskia. Like I was 25, right?
Yeah.
So like one of the things that, I got thrown into the fire really quick in coaching, both in the collegiate level and professionally. So I'm dealing with Saskia. Like I'm 25 years old. Charlie DeCilli, her head coach, tells me like she's the best girl goalkeeper in the country. So I'm like, oh, wow, this is going to be great, right? So we have some sessions together, and I'm like, yeah, this, Saskia's being very kind to me, and, we're getting to know each other. Well, then I throw her into a session with the guys, a small sided game, and she's MFing people and she's yelling at people. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, this is not the girl from Princeton who was like, yes, coach, no, coach. This is different gravy now. And I'm looking at some of the guys, and they're like,
My Jersey side.
how am I supposed to take this? Like, she just called me like, a dumb MFer and for not defending. Like, am I going to put up with this? And the other goalkeepers were like, they were backing Saskia. So then all the other guys backed Saskia. So like, I was like, holy cow. Like, I better mind my P's and Q's because this girl will snap. Like, I can't have, like, look, I mean, I'm lucky I have a wife. I'm not good with women that way. So like, I got it. Like, there's a good chance I'll screw this thing up. So like, for me, like, that moment was like, holy cow, this girl can walk the edge of psycho. So I need to be like, in a good way though. So like, I need to like really be buttoned up. And it really like, it took everybody in that session by surprise. Like, we're talking about like Steve Rammel, who was runner up for the Herman, Alexi Lalas, guys like that were in the session, and she's calling them out. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
So that was my first like week with Saskia, and I'm like, all right, this is
I was
different.
messing around.
Tim grew up real fast there. My experience would be pretty much the same. Like when Saskia came in, I was really impressed how she just got in there and mixed it up with the guys immediately. No intimidation factor at all. Just loved mixing it up with those guys, and you could see that greatness was going to come her way because of her attitude and her training. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and the other thing, so I would go to her games then, right? And I'd sit on the bench, and I wasn't like, me and Blodgett would just help out because they didn't have a female goalkeeper coach. So I'd go to the games, and they were playing. Sas, you were playing behind the rack at that point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
and
right.
With like no light.
Yeah, it was like car headlights. It was like car headlights were better than the lights that they had, right? So like Saskia's team, and wonderful young ladies, but they weren't as talented as Saskia. And she'd come over to me, and loud enough so people could hear, like just how displeased she was with what was going on in front of her. And I'd be like, she'd be like, you got to talk to Charlie. I'd be like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I've been on the job for like 2 months. I think I may pass on telling him that his team stinks. All right. So like, I'll ease off on that one, but over time, the Jersey and we were able to work through it. But yeah, when that competitive juice came out, there was a whole different side to Saskia.
Yeah, that's true. That's cool.
That's funny. I love it.
Yeah. Those days in front of the rack, like I had to really focus to see you because the lights were so bad.
I had to go to the ophthalmologist because I thought I was having seeing problems when it was just like night vision because we didn't have good enough lights. They gave me like some contacts to wear just to wear on that field, which I couldn't see my finger in my eye.
Kidding,
really?
Yeah, because the lights were so bad back there.
They were terrible.
They were terrible.
And
they were real low, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they weren't bright. And every year we heard the same stuff. Oh, we're going to get new lights. We're going to get new lights. We got a donor with new lights. That guy never showed up, man. Yeah. My Monte Carlo had better headlights. By the way, that was a great car, might I add. A great car, that Monte Carlo in Jersey at that time, boy.
Yeah, but then you go watch the guys' games and they're on the turf field, which by the way is turf like laid on cement back then.
Yeah, that took years off my life.
Yeah, that was brutal too.
Serving on that thing,
See, because what you don't understand is I trained with the men.
Yeah.
And then I would go to the women's practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do.
Wow.
It was fun.
Yeah, I love these stories. I thought I was always very quiet, docile. And
no.
Saskia, I realized that obviously from literally when I just brought up your name at convention in Baltimore this past year, and I would bring it up with different people, and
people
they go,
are like checking over their shoulder.
They're like, is she here?
Yeah,
she's here, right? I'm like, no, she's not here. She's like, oh, okay. She's like, okay. Well, then
you hit true Jersey status when people do that for you.
Yeah, exactly.
You hit true Jersey status then.
I love it. I love you guys.
Well, guys, before we sign off right here, first off, again, thank you for taking the time. If there's any young goalkeeper coaches out there, any goalkeepers out there that are looking for advice or, want to know more about, what you're doing with, Blodgett with your school, in Jersey or in the area, and they want to get involved, And Mulch, I know, obviously you're big time, as a head coach at a
Stop.
professional team and all that.
I've never been associated with big time, so let's leave it. Let's eliminate that.
We got to go. We got to come to Memphis, man. We got to come to
Look,
Memphis.
you get here, I will treat you like gods. It's a great city. You'll love.
I would love to
You'll
watch.
love
I would love to watch the sessions. Just the interaction between you, the keeper coach, and Tim.
Look,
that would just be
open
awesome,
invitation.
man.
Open invitation. Anytime you guys want.
We would love that. I just want to
Thank
go for the barbecue.
Dude, I
but,
can't even walk out my front door right now. But when we get,
I know,
Yeah.
but it's going to end at some point, right?
It's gonna end at some.
I know, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
But absolutely. The open invitation. I'd love to have you guys out.
yeah, man. We should do a live show out in Memphis, and clinic for the kids
we're
out there.
I'd gladly do that. I'd gladly do it.
Let's talk about it, man. Let's talk. So where's the best place for people to reach out to either one of you guys? Tim, I know you're very active in social media.
I don't have one. Because you know why? Because I know people have some nasty things to say, and then I'll say nasty things back, and then we'll just go down a bad rabbit hole. So it won't be good. Look, I burned some bridges in the day. I admit it. But look, the best way to reach me is I would say email. So I'm religious with that. It's Tim Mulqueen at Memphis901fc.com. That's it. I'll reach out. Anybody who wants to talk goalkeeping, I'm all yours, man. So I'd be glad to. If you think I'm valuable in any way, I'd be glad to help.
Right on.
Blodge?
Yeah, I think I'm on Facebook.
Of course you are.
Yeah. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram.
Because you're a nice guy.
Yeah.
You're a nice guy. People like you. They don't say bad things about you.
Well, I haven't heard any yet, thank God. But or they can email me as well. It's my first initial P and then Blodgett at earthlink.net. Don't be offended if you get spam. That's one of the big things about Earthlink. Everything anybody don't know gets thrown into spam. You got to do the little encrypted thing there and fill it out. But once I get you in, you're in. So
you can't go .com. You can't get. I mean, come on, Blodge.
Not net. I got to be different, Mulch.
Yeah, that damn right you do.
You can hit me at apparently Psycho Rutgers Jersey Goalkeeper.
That's great.
Hashtag you.
There you go. Courtesy of Tim Mulqueen.
Now you guys
great.
know where to find me. It's just Saskia Weber on both Instagram and Facebook.
And if you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion, by the way, people have been saying we need to get you on Blodge and you Mulch on the show. And honestly, I was like, would they do the show? I don't know. Like it's easier for me to reach out to an MLS goalkeeper than it is, to people like yourself that I hold in such high esteem in regards to the position. I really appreciate you guys doing it.
I'm thrilled to be on. I'll be on anytime you want.
right.
I love
Yeah,
it. So
same here. And I tell you what, getting a chance to hang with Saskia and Mulch is
Saskia.
always fun.
This is everything.
But this is honestly, this has been one of the positives of the quarantine. It's allowed people to reconnect. Because a lot of times our schedules are so darn busy, they never match up, and it's allowed people to make these reconnections that I think are going to benefit the goalkeeper community, moving forward. So guys, at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms, contact at insidethe18media.com. That's all for Inside the 18 today, guys, and we are out. Later.